Hey guys, Mr. Queering here, and I am alone in my classroom.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
At the beginning of the unit, we did the famous egg drop experiment to see if we could protect an egg from a collision with the ground. In this video, I'm going to drop something that's more valuable to me, and along the way, I'm going to explain how Newton's laws help us protect things from collisions. Before we begin though, I'd just like to talk about America. Even with everything going on right now, I believe that right here and right now is the best time in human history to exist. The Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker has a great TED Talk about this, and in it he explains all of the things that have gotten better during the 20th century. Things like war, poverty, famine, all of these things are on the decrease when we look at it over time. We really do live in the safest and most prosperous time in human history. Let me just offer one piece of evidence that backs up this optimism that I have. When we look at car crash deaths in the United States, we see that since the year 1930, they've been on a steep decline. And the total number of car crash deaths in the United States has been going down since 1970, even though Americans have been spending more time on the road. So how does this even work? How is it that there are fewer people dying from car accidents, even though there are more cars on the road now in America than ever? In the last 70 years, we've learned a lot more about collisions and how we can build cars that protect people from dying in car crashes. Take a look at this video of a car crash from an old car and a new car. Do you notice any differences? For one thing, you should notice how long the actual impact takes. For example, the old car pretty much comes to a stop right away, while the new car takes a longer time to actually slow down and come to a stop during the collision. So this entire idea about measuring how long an impact takes is something that physicists call impulse, and it's based off of Newton's second law. Force equals mass times acceleration. In order to understand how this relates to Newton's second law, we're going to have to mess around with the F equals ma equation a bit. First, we need to realize that acceleration is just an object's change in velocity over time. Here we're going to replace acceleration with change in velocity divided by time. Then we multiply both sides by time in order to yield this equation. Force times time equals mass times velocity. This is called the force-impulse-momentum equation. Force times time, that part on the left, is what we call impulse. And as we know, mass times velocity is momentum. So what does this equation even mean? It tells us that the longer amount of time that a collision takes place, the safer it is because the less force the object is experiencing. So when it comes to cars, the longer amount of time that we can make the collision take place, the better, because the less force the passenger will actually experience during the collision. So, when we look at the force-impulse-momentum equation, we see that there are two ways to reduce the amount of force that something experiences during a collision. The first way is to reduce the velocity with which the two objects collide. And the second thing we can do is increase the overall amount of time that the collision takes place. In other words, we either want to make t very big or v very small. So like I said before, I pretty much have two strategies that I can go about to protect my object. First of all, according to the force-impulse-momentum equation, I could make the time over which the actual impact takes place really long or really big. Or I can just reduce the amount of velocity or how fast the object is going when it hits the ground. In other words, I can make v for velocity really small. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two different prototypes. Each of those is going to utilize a different strategy. So, what have I chosen to drop that's valuable to me? Well, I've decided that I'm going to drop my iPhone, which I guess means if things don't go the way that I want them to, my social media presence is going to be a little bit reduced for a little while. But we'll see if my phone can survive not one, but two drops. So the first thing I'm going to try is the old-fashioned parachute. And the idea behind that would be to reduce the amount of velocity that the object falls with, and from there, we should be able to reduce the force of impact. And so what I'm going to do is I cut out a square from an old t-shirt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a parachute. So you know, when I was growing up, I never had to get a new phone because I had broken it. But my sister, my younger sister, had to get like 1 million new phones every year because she would always break them. So you know, if my phone doesn't break while I'm trying to break it, I'm gonna be able to rub this in her face for the rest of her life. So the way it'll work is that my phone will go in this little pouch. And then there is our parachute. So the idea behind this other one is a little bit more different. So what I have here is I have a capsule in here, that's where the phone's going to go, and I've got 2 rubber bands holding it to the top and 1 rubber band holding it to the bottom. And so the idea behind this is I want to make that impact on the ground take as much time for the phone as possible. So while the whole box is hitting the ground, the phone itself will be moving up and down and spreading out that force over a longer time period. Now, I want to make sure that it lands this side down. So as you can see, I've put a bag of rocks in the bottom. That way, it'll just fall straight down like that. So I'm here in the cafeteria, and we are going to drop my phone off of that staircase. So that might not seem like a long ways, but it can be if you're a phone. So first up, I'm gonna go with the one that I'm pretty sure is going to work, but we'll see what happens. Here we go. So it looks like my bag is slightly broken, but the phone is intact. So guys, it does look like we have a bit of damage right here, right there in the corner. It's cracked a little bit. Overall, this box, not too bad, but next, we're gonna try the parachute. So overall, it looked like that worked pretty well. There's not really any additional damage to the phone other than the first time. It seems like my major design flaw in this case was that whenever this is hanging from the parachute, it actually hangs sideways. So it's not hanging even like this. So that means most of the time when it hits the ground, the top is going to hit and take most of that impact. But I mean, even so, I think we did pretty good here. So that's it. We used Newton's second law and the force, impulse, momentum equation to save my phone from utter disaster. So I hope you learned something. I hope you had a good semester. You guys are awesome. I'll see you next time.